All right, guys, welcome back to another little epi of PPK Perspectives. I'm joined by, I had Saint Wave on already, who you guys have saw. That was definitely one of my favorite Catholic accounts. I have definitely someone who's up there as well. I'm joined by Draco here. His at is shop.draco. I'm going to actually post some stuff. I'm going to post some pictures. I'm going to post some stuff up here. We're getting better with the editing, and we'll show it off. But Draco, thanks for coming on, dude.
Of course. It's my pleasure.
So we're going to get into a lot of stuff. Obviously, like we always do, we're going to get into a story, but I do have a few icebreaker questions for Draco. I'm going to do some ones that we haven't done before. I like to do the if you had 3 movies, for the rest of your life, what would you watch? I'm not going to ask you that one, even though I'm curious. Here's my first one, though. If you could only eat one type of cuisine for the rest of your life, what would it be? And I mean, like, it doesn't be one dish, but it's like, are we talking Italian, Mexican, whatever it may be?
I would probably have to, I'm from SoCal, so I probably would have to say Mexican food. But my personal favorite dish is just like a good old beef stew. That's
nice
just
beef stew.
A nice beef stew is my classic, but you can't go wrong with Mexican food.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. All right. I like that. And then I have another one. If you could have any car of your dreams, what is that?
Now that one's a little tough. I would probably say like a 1970s like Porsche.
Oh wow, that's the one.
Yeah,
I like that one a lot.
I feel like going like with a Rolls Royce is an easy answer, but like,
it is.
Nah, I
like the vintage aspect too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the vintage aspect. I would go like with an old Range, or the old Broncos. They're unreal. Those would be my probably choice. And then here's my last one. Your favorite show of all time? It's toughy.
Ooh, okay.
You can name whatever comes to your mind.
We'll see. My answer might be a little cringe, and that's why I'm hesitant. This is gonna out me, but with a lot of the Catholic community, I'm actually a fan of Japanese anime. Okay. So I would have to probably pick something from one of those. But I think it's best. Maybe it's best I keep this answer private, because the more I say, I feel like I'm just canceling myself.
Okay, no worries. Hey, if it makes you feel better, I watched One Punch Man and I loved it, but other than that, I haven't dived into it.
It's got some great stuff right there.
Okay, all right. I'll how about this? I'll share some of my favorite shows, and then we'll act like you asked me the question.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go with comedy is a real hard tie between Friends and The Office per usual. I'm a basic boy in that sense.
Yeah, I feel like everybody.
It's hard not to. And then for let's go more serious. It has to be Money Heist. I don't know if you've watched Money Heist.
I have not seen. I know it's on Netflix though.
Yeah, beware of a little agenda though. You know what I mean? Like it's season 4 and they realized they had to throw a gay person in there. It's one of those kind of things.
Of course.
And then other than that, if we did like a throwback, maybe like I'm gonna go with wholesome vibes. Maybe it's like okay, I have to throw Everybody Hates Chris in there. That's an awesome one.
Classic.
And yeah, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at Everybody Hates Chris. That's a good one.
Beautiful.
Okay. All right, Draco. So why don't you just go through a little bit of your story, kind of how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Draco. How did I get to where I am today? Because obviously I'm here to talk about my company, but it actually began kind of funny. So I didn't have like any kind of background in like art or design. I was raised in a family where we're mainly focusing on like athletics and stuff like that. But when I was 17, I used to play a lot of basketball, a lot of volleyball. I got injured really bad. I actually broke my back, and I herniated a disc. And at this part of my life, it was like a huge shocker for me, because I had had this plan in my head that God's path for me in life was going to be like, oh, I'm going to be an athlete, and then maybe I can play with like a crucifix on, and I can try to like evangelize through that, right? It's very like low tier logic, very like 17-year-old. And this happened to me, and it was kind of like I had like a huge identity crisis. And I had a lot of siblings who were like D1 athletes, or like were going to be professional athletes and stuff. And I was like, dude, like I'm the youngest of 5. What am I going to do, right? And all that time I had allotted to like athletics and to like training was now free and open. And something that's kind of unusual was that when I was a little kid, I had a hobby, and my hobby was to do origami. I did a lot of origami all day, every day, just folding constantly. And I got back into it, and it became something like that I would share it with my family and make them things, show them things. And eventually, my grandfather pulled me aside, and he was like, "Draco, like, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm just folding, just making stuff." And he's like, why aren't you like, what are you going to apply for in college? And at this point, I'm like a senior in high school. I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to do business, going to be, something like that. And he's like, you need to do architecture. You're an architect. And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean? Like, I don't know what you're talking about." And then he goes on to tell me that like on his side of the family, the men had been architects for like generations. And I was like, this is entirely news to me. And after I watched like one YouTube video, I was completely sold. Like 5 minutes, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to be an architect. I'm going to do this. But I had no experience in it whatsoever. So, freshman year comes along. I got into architecture school at USC. I was really nervous because all of my peers were like ninth generation architects or like artists, and they are like, they can do like fine art paintings and stuff. And I'm like sitting there like, I can fold you something pretty cool, but other than that, I didn't know, much. And I actually converted to Catholicism when I was 18, and I wasn't, USC, it's got a big party scene, right? And I wasn't really into partying. I'm a very extroverted guy, but I just feel really uncomfortable in those kinds of environments. So what we used to do instead is me and my buddies, after hours, once classes are over, we would sneak back into the architecture school because we have like a little ID pass that gives us 24-hour access to our studios. But at the time, it also gave us access to the rest of the building. So we would sneak back in, and I'd go down into the basement where there's actually a lecture hall. And my buddies and I used to go into the lecture hall, connect our laptops into the HDMI, and then project movies, shows, whatever we wanted. And we used to sneak back into our studios, grab our art supplies, and grab like our clothes that didn't fit us anymore, or like old stuff or things we got from Goodwill. And we actually would pull the desks in from the studio into the lecture hall, and we would treat it like arts and crafts hour. This would happen on Fridays, on Saturdays, on spring break. We would literally paint on clothes. We would cut clothes and resew them back together. My buddy's got an embroidery machine, and that's kind of what spiraled like everything for me, was the embroidery machine. And this was how we spent every week. And we would, everybody had a turn to watch this show or that show or this movie. Or like, guys, I found this new artist. And we got that idea because there was this dude visiting LA who was this like young artist who got sponsored by Cartoon Network to like make screen printed like cool streetwear clothes with like characters on them and stuff. And we went and we met him, and he had like 100,000 followers online, and we were like, dude, this guy's incredible. And we met him, and he was like, oh yeah, if you guys have a shirt, like I'll screen print something for you. And so we gave him a shirt, and he printed onto it, and it was awesome. But we left being like, we all looked at each other, we're like, dude, we could like start doing this, like why don't we start doing this? And so spring break of my freshman year was the day that we first started like making clothes in the basement. Before, we were just kind of pulling shenanigans, like, playing video games, watching shows, goofing around. And we came up with this little like creative entity that we called the Summer Session Art Associates. And the idea was that in any break, summer, winter, fall, whatever it is, we would meet up and we would all work our own little creative brands and projects. And it's amazing because all of my buddies, like, all of their brands have kind of taken off, and they're like, God bless them. And that's when I came up with this idea of Draco. And I made my very first Draco shirt. And we kept doing this all the time, and it was amazing. And that's all to give the foundation for the creation of my brand. But it actually wasn't until the winter of my sophomore year, when we were having what we called the winter session for the summer sesh, where I made my first stained glass embroidered sweater. Yeah. And so that's my whole little, upbringing story of how that came to be.
Dude, that is unreal, man. You guys literally created the Dead Poet Society of like USC architecture. And that is the coolest thing.
Incredible.
It is cool, man. I mean, like that would have been a group. I mean, wasn't gonna get into USC or architecture, but like that would have been sick. If I was there, dude, that would have been a sick group to hang out with. Okay, so there's a lot there. There's definitely a lot there to go off of that I want to dive into. But I do at least want to know, because you said you converted at 18. Mm-hmm. So if we could talk a little bit about like what was your childhood kind of like, what were your parents, if they had faith, whatever it was, like that family environment, school environment, and then just kind of like what made you convert, and then
well, there's 5 kids in my family, and I'm the youngest of 5, right? And my father, he came from very like humble beginnings, and he was raised Protestant, but he had a really, really strong sense for prayer. And like I said earlier, my family is was always really about like athletics and training and sports and all of this stuff. And my siblings were all incredible athletes, and whenever we had any kind of tournament or game or practice, he always pulled us aside and we always made sure we prayed before. And my father is an incredible public speaker, and his prayers always like meant a lot to us. And so we would pray a lot as a family. We weren't really going to church very often. We maybe would go on Christmas, even rarer on Easter. And my siblings all went to this small private Protestant, it was actually Quaker, elementary and middle school. And I was maybe in 6th or 7th grade. And, I really appreciate my education in a lot of ways because they familiarized us with the Bible, right? And so I had read through the Bible legitimately. I mean, the Protestant Bible 4, maybe more times. And I had been very accustomed with the stories. And I found in myself like this sense of like, I truly believed in this Christ figure. But in my Bible classes, in my theology courses, I was always finding myself conflicted with the things that were being taught to us and how they related to the Bible, even at an early age. And it put a place in my heart of skepticism, right? Not really about Christ himself, but kind of about like, wait. Like at any time we can tell Christ that we're sorry, he forgives us, right? So, but what about the wrong we've done, right? Like I remember specifically, I had this teacher, and she told us, it doesn't matter who you are or what you do, Christ like can always forgive you. And I was like, yeah, I buy that. And she was like, you could be on your deathbed and say like, Jesus, I'm sorry, I love you, and be saved. And I was like, okay. And then she was like, it doesn't matter if you're like a murderer or like a rapist or a mob, like kingpin. These were the actual examples she had given us when I'm like 12. And I was like, okay. She's like, it doesn't matter if you kill somebody that day. If you say, Jesus, I'm sorry, he will forgive you. And I was like, and you'll go to heaven. And I was like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I mean, that sounds really nice, but my issue with that was, well, then where's the consistency? So I don't really have to, like, I can just rely on any moment, anytime I say, I'm sorry, I'm forgiven. Made me really question things, really doubt. And it was within a few years that my older brother went to a Catholic high school. And we're Spanish. And my father kind of raised us all with like this, sense of like cultural pride, where we came from, our ancestors. And my brother learned about Junipero Serra and the California missions. We're from California, and we had visited the missions many times. And he was talking about this Junipero Serra person who was unfamiliar to me at the time. and he said, like, Dad, I was with my father, and he's like, Dad, Drake, like, this guy, he was Spanish, and he brought the faith to California. That's why we have, everything. If you haven't been to California, all of the cities, all the towns are Spanish names, right? He's like, that's why we were from a small town called Yorba Linda. That's why you're from Yorba Linda or San Juan Capistrano or like Los Angeles or, San Francisco. And he also talked to us about this, about miracles, and this individual named Padre Pio. And he showed us photos of his stigmata. And I'm, 13, 14 at this time. And my father and I are just silent. And we're like, right? There's not much doubt going to go on when you're looking through the holes of a guy's hands. And you say he lived a full life with these injuries. He bled every day. There's that. And then he showed us Our Lady of Guadalupe. And he said, Dad, Drake, look, they have microscopic images of her eyes. You can see the people in the room when Juan Diego, like the miracle occurred, and we're looking at this, and the tessellations on her cloak, and the color is elevated from the garment, and it's been bombed, it's been burnt, and yet it still survived. And my father and I are all listening, and we're just like this. There's something very real and tangible that I had not been able to find in my upbringing with Protestantism. That this idea that miracles and saints and holy people, angels and demons, were a thing of the past. They existed in the Bible times, but the Catholic Church was saying, no, these people and this exists now, maybe even more now than ever, right? Which to me, I'm like, this is something. And my brother quickly started attending Mass, started taking me. He used to actually trick me. He used to tell me, Drake, you want to go get some food? And I was like, yeah, like I'm hungry. He's like, okay, cool, let's go. You want to get In-N-Out? And I'm like, yeah, I want to get In-N-Out. He was okay. And he would go into his car and he's like, we need to make a stop first. I'm like, okay. He pull up to the church and I'd be pissed, right? And he would make me sit through Mass, and then we'd get In-N-Out after, right? And I was like, dude, like it's been like 5 hours. Like, what the heck is going on? But he kept doing it. And sometimes for practice, I'd have to drive up to Los Angeles for volleyball, and he would have to drive me, and I'd fall asleep in his car, and he'd put on Catholic radio or Catholic Answers at the time. And I remember I would have dreams of what they were talking about, and I'd wake up like in a daze, and they'd be talking about what I was just dreaming about, and I'd be like, what is this? And then my brother went to college. He also went to USC, and he went through RCIA there. And I was 15, and I'm never going to forget this. I watched him receive his baptism, his confirmation, his first Holy Communion on the Easter Vigil at midnight at USC at the Crusoe Catholic Center. And they put him in this all-white garment. It was completely candle-lit. They had Gregorian chant. They had the organ playing. They dunked him in this pool of holy water, and they pulled him out, and they poured oils on him. And as I'm watching this, every time the priest talked about the sacraments, the candles were like flickering, and there was just this silence and this power. And it was that moment that I was like, I need to, this is real. Like, I need to become Catholic. Like, I need this. And it was when I was 17, turning 18, me, my father and my mother all went through RCIA together, and this was 2016, and then in 2017 we all were baptized, confirmed, received our first Holy Communion, and then the preceding year, 2 of my 3 sisters went through RCIA, and in 2018 I got to see 2 of my sisters become Catholic, and now out of the 7 of us, 6 of us are now Catholic.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is insane. I was just kind of expecting we were cradle Catholics and then this and that or whatever it was.
No,
Got this insane story where somehow your brother went to a Catholic high school and actually wanted to be Catholic instead of the complete opposite.
I know. Can you believe that?
I can't. That's the one that sticks with me the most, I think, out of this whole thing. That, and then somehow you're at like a Newman Center and they're doing Gregorian chant, which is out of this world too. There's a ton there. We'll start with in your kind of conversion, which is really interesting, especially that it's with your whole family. But were these? I imagine there's a lot of things you guys had to wrestle with, right? Like you said that your dad being very prayerful and seemed like he was pretty strong in his faith. And I'm sure like when there's things about praying to Our Lady or whatever it may be, right? The Eucharist, there's so many teachings that are hard to accept or understand. So, I mean, what are some of those for you? And like, how did you guys kind of get or go about like either overcoming them or accepting them or whatever it may be?
No, of course, of course. I was this Protestant upbringing. They taught us, the Catholic Church was evil. They told us, they prayed to saints. They worshiped Mother Mary. She's just a lady. They would say all of these, things as I'm, wearing Mother Mary on my chest now. I'm sure a previous Draco would have been confused by that. Another like, an easy one is my family was just very inconsistent about Sundays, about worshiping on Sundays, and now we're obligated to go to mass. It's no longer like a nice concert I get to go to, but like a real commitment. Learning about things like in vitro fertilization and the Catholic Church's stances, because actually I have members of my family who have a lot of physical disabilities and aren't able to have their own children and stuff, right? And so for me and my family, these were some questions we had to ponder. Who are the saints? Who's Our Lady? Like, what is this? But I mean, what kind of drew me to allow my barriers to kind of open up is just the immense beauty that exists within the Catholic Church. It's just so unexplainable, so awe-inspiring, so like just completely flipped my world upside down. And it took me quite some time to come to terms with like the devotion to Mother Mary, because I started realizing that many times I pray more often to Mother Mary than I do to Christ some days. And I was like, well, I felt conflicted about that, a little confused, but it took me to kind of grapple with this idea that prayer is not worship. Prayer is communicating. Prayer can be worship, but not all prayer is, right? I can pray and I can speak to a saint in the same way that I would ask my own brother who's sitting in the same room as me, hey man, I'm having a hard day. Can you pray for me? Right? I can reach out to Saint Joseph, the father of my Lord here on earth, and I can ask him, hey, like, can you look out for me? Can you help me? Can you guide me to be a man like you? In the same way that I would say that to a mentor or to a father, right? And it took me understanding that Mary is the mother of my God, right? She is a mother to me, and I'm not worshiping her. I'm in many ways I'm adoring her, right? But why? Because she, gave birth to Christ. She mothered Christ. She led him. She fed him. She cared for him. She loved him, and so many ways that we will never know. She was there by his side in all of his greatest moments and his weakest moments, and she knows Christ better than anybody. And if I want to know Christ, don't I want to know the people who were closest to him as well, right? The ones who got to see him every day. And my mother actually, she passed away from cancer when I was 18, and I had a lot of conflict because I obviously miss my mother, but my church is telling me I can still pray for her, I can still speak to her, right? And now I have Mother Mary, who's also a mother to me, right? And that brought me a lot of comfort in dark times. That brought me a lot of hope. It instilled in me this truth that that the saints are just as alive as they were when they're here on earth, and I don't need to be afraid to call upon them, right? And that was extremely powerful to me, and that kind of resolved and freed me in a lot of ways, and I think that's something that the Catholic Church has, is the level of tradition and the willingness and the history, to show like we're all connected in this body of Christ, I think it's just is more reason to kind of draw me closer and closer. You know, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once again, awesome and amazing stuff to go off of there. I'm curious too, a little bit from like, let's say from 18 to now, and sort of that faith journey, because I think it's safe to say that you seem like a pretty traditional guy from what I've seen on at least like Instagram and everything like that. And I guess I'm just a little bit curious because it takes a lot, like for me being someone who was a cradle Catholic. And I remember the first time, let's say like attending Latin Mass, right? And I was like 11 years old. And then my mom was like, how'd you guys like it? And I was like, I would never take my kids to that. And like I literally said that for some reason. I don't know why I had to go that far. That was a little bit excessive for me to say that. But I said that and just had no, and my mom's like, really? I think it's so beautiful. And my mom didn't really push back at all. It's more like, okay, we tried that kind of thing, you know? And then, I don't know, as time went on, and I went to Franciscan, obviously, which can be a very charismatic school, is a very charismatic school. But for me, like, I guess I had a very long journey, and it was very much an intellectual conversion that was taking place for me. And then being able to experience TLM and just, I don't know, the depth of things like chant and some other, and just, you know, I was exposed to them more than basically like what I had been brought up, which is a 5:30 youth mass on Sunday, and, you know, a pretty piss poor like version of youth group and pizza and all this kind of stuff. And so like I guess I'm just curious on like what's that journey from 18 to now, to where now you have such, I mean, you got to be a pretty smart guy, intellectual, but there's so much to overcome that short time, and then to be on top of that, like extremely traditional. I'm just interested in that.
Of course. I mean, dude, I think, I'd be lying to say I didn't go through like a massive identity crisis from like 18 to now, like, you know, tremendous, from converting to like my injury to like losing my mom. It was like, dude, I literally was like, what is going on? But like, I was raised hearing these amazing stories of Christ, hearing the intense persecution throughout time that our people, you know, have endured. I would witness the impacts of our faith. But then I looked around me and I said, where is this tradition? Where is this history that is so beautiful, that is so encapsulating for me? Because, you know, aesthetics to me is so valuable, so important. It's why part of the reason why I want to be an architect. The philosophy of aesthetics is so fulfilling to me. It's like, it's our ability to tap into being made in the image of God, you know? And I would see this. I mean, I was raised Protestant, but where are the Protestant cathedrals? Where is Notre Dame, right? Where is La Sagrada Familia? Where is, you know, the Hagia Sophia when it was Catholic? When it is, you know, it still is, but you know, where are all these great signs of God's glory in this disgusting place we call the world, you know? And that put in me this desire. I just wanted to see more of God, right? And I see God in these beautiful things. And I would go to church, and Mass, I went to, you know, I was blessed. There's an amazing, actually, Catholic community in Yorba Linda. Trying to remember the name of it, but I would go when I was 13. So it's been a good 10 years since I last went. That's why I'm blanking. St. Martin de Porres. Thank you. My brother saved me. St. Martin de Porres. They're actually an incredible Catholic community. And it was Novus Ordo. And it was very, you know, they, at the time, they were still using a lot of like worship music, and, you know, they're doing lots of things that I know a lot of traditional Catholics, you know, kind of like have disdain for. But for me, being raised in Protestant, I'm used to everybody standing up with their hands in their air, you know, talking about their brothers and sisters and this and that, and like, having an actual light show and as fog machines. I kid you not, at my church growing up, fog machines, and people like dancing and singing. And I would leave being like, we didn't read the Bible today, and so for me, the Norris Ordo was already a huge step up, right? And what introduced me to the TLM was, again, my brother. He took me one day, and he said, Drake, I found a really special church. I want to take you to them. All right. And this is back 2015, maybe. And he took me to this place in Hollywood. He said, there's a church community that's renting out a space here. And but dressed nice, right? And to me, I told you I grew up wearing only the Gap. That we were an exclusive. We were like more Gap than Kanye West, okay? I pull up wearing my Gap khakis and a plaid Gap button up, which is legitimately the most formal clothes I had at the time. And we walk in, and what I saw, I'll never forget. I saw the incense. I saw women veiled for the first time. I saw them like these elaborate, beautiful, formal dresses, and men. Every guy was in a suit and a tie. And I was like, I feel out of place. I feel very, very out of place. And I look forward and I see not only a priest, but a priest completely wearing these formal robes, and just, it was cloudy in the air, and it smelled. What is the smell, right? And what I came to learn was that we had gone to this small church community that was known as St. Vitus, and they were part of the fraternal, the FSSP. And I experienced my first FSSP Mass as a teenager, and I left feeling like I had actually just stepped into heaven. I had witnessed heaven on earth. I was convinced that those women I saw weren't even women, but angels, and that the men there were like, I was scared to death of them, and it was amazing. And then I didn't really think about it very much, and I continued to go to the Norris Ordo, but I believed I would watch my brother receive communion on the knees and on the tongue. And he looked at me, and he would say, Draco, he literally was like, don't ever receive on the hands, receive it on the tongue. And I was like, kid, still, I'm 5 years younger than my brother, so he's big brother to me. And I was like, yeah, okay, And so I received on the day of my confirmation on the tongue, and I had continued to do so. And I am extremely blessed because at USC, every college, let's be real with ourselves, is kind of a very dangerous place. And a lot of the Catholic colleges that claim to be Catholic are doing things or supporting things that kind of go against our teachings. I can name a handful of Catholic universities in Los Angeles that have openly supported Planned Parenthood, allowed them to speak on their campuses, which goes against our catechism. And at USC, the Caruso Catholic Center is extremely the fire of the Holy Spirit is very alive there. And I was introduced to some people that kind of relit this fire in my heart for the faith. Focus Missionaries, the president of the Catholic Center, one of my greatest friends, God bless him. I don't know if I should name drop him or not. He would sit with me, and we would speak and talk about the theology and the teachings of the church, and we'd ask all these questions. And I had this Focus missionary. He is in the seminary now, and we would talk long conversations. And he was essentially my sugar daddy for free meals. He would convince me to come to the Bible studies and to these church events at the Catholic Center if he paid for my meals. And I would say, okay. I'm a poor college kid. What else am I going to eat? Nothing, air. And he would treat me to amazing meals and then just talk with me. And he invited me when I was a sophomore to join a handful of the young men at the Catholic Center to go to a special mass, but I have to dress nice. So again, I put on my best Gap uniform that I could get out of my closet, and I'm 20 at the time. and he takes me to this tiny little church in San Fernando Valley. And I'm like, what is this place, dude? Like, where are we going? And I walk in, and the sign says St. Vitus Catholic Church. And I'm like, oh, I know this place. I am very familiar with this place. And we talked about the traditional Latin Mass, and we talked about the sacraments. We talked about tradition and reverence and just the power of the faith. And one of the things that kind of sold me to the Latin Mass was that they offer confession during Mass. To me, that was like the most amazing, incredible thing ever. I'm like, dude, are you for real? Like, you're telling me I have no excuse to not receive the Eucharist? Like, this is incredible. And that stuck with me heavily. And so in the preceding, COVID happened not long after in 2020, my sophomore year, the same year. And in Los Angeles, it was probably one of the most challenging things in my entire life to not have access to the church, to not have access to communion, to not have access to confession. It was really scary, especially because of how strict people were. At my university, we had masked police that would walk around and pull students aside if they weren't wearing their masks outdoors. And I felt just extremely confused, conflicted, and lost and scared. What's going on with my faith? And then the only church in all of Los Angeles to not shut down was St. Vitus. So I found my home there. I found my community. I found the traditional Latin Mass was a light in the time of darkness for me. Every Sunday I had it. Every day I had it, right? And I could always rely on it, and that became my home parish. And then I soon found other church communities were standing up and be like, we need Mass. Our people need Mass. There was St. Peter and Paul's in Wilmington, an amazing Norbertine parish. They offered the traditional Latin Mass. There was churches in Long Beach. There were churches in Orange County. There was St. John the Baptist. There, all of these. I saw this movement towards it, and I would meet other people like me. You would expect to go to a TLM and walk into a bunch of 70, 80-year-olds, and I'm seeing people younger than me holding their children, and I'm like, I'm 20, 21, and I'm meeting 19-year-olds who are married, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is incredible, right? And I'm getting this fullness, this tradition of the Catholic Church. I love church hopping. I love experiencing the Eastern rites of the Catholic Church. I felt like you could see, you can see them by their fruits, right? And I was seeing these churches that were just like, when the priest would hold the Eucharist, I knew without a doubt that he believed. Right, and I would look around my left and right. I knew that everybody there believed, and it was incredible, especially in the Eastern churches. It was after that I started dating my girlfriend. God bless her. When we first started dating, she was actually Protestant as well, and I was very patient. I didn't try to push my faith on her in any way. I would just pray with her. I would talk about the Bible with her a lot because, I also used to be Protestant. All my friends are Catholic, and she slowly came around, but I will never forget when I told her, hey, Catherine, I think we should, when we get married and have kids and stuff, I think we should probably try at least to only go to a Latin Mass. Oh my gosh. At the time, she's going to hate me for saying this, she was not happy because she didn't have as strong of an impression with the Latin Mass upon my first time when she experienced her first. But now, oh my gosh, when I tell her I went to I didn't go to my local Latin Mass, she's like, all hell breaks loose. So she's wonderful and extremely holy, and I've never met anybody more reverent and faithful than her. But it was a long journey in a short amount of time. I think that God just put me. I think one of my closest friends is a philosopher and a composer. And he was talking about how a lot of people are actually mistaken that this narrative of Christ that exists in the Bible, the gospel, the New Testament, is actually over. But he was telling me that we actually exist in the unfolding narrative, is what he called it. That the story of Christ is not only alive, it's continuing, and we're characters in the story. We're hobbits in the Shire. You know, we're on this path that God is using us to continue His legacy. You know, to shine a light in the darkness.
There's so much there that I just completely agree with, and I love that you said. I mean, it's been such an awesome interview up until this point because you've been able to really take things just to so many different directions that have been beautiful, at least to hear. And one of the big things that I'm taking away, well, first I'll say that TLM did the same for me, and when I was reading sort of the missal, and I'm like actually figuring out why we do what we do in the Mass, and all those things just completely, I mean, spoke to me on new levels. And I was more of a political conservative before I became a traditional Catholic, but it seemed like a lot of those sort of seeds somewhat kind of like helped me get to that point. But one of the things that have really been such a blessing since I moved to Arizona is the FSSP. So that's they have basically one church, two parishes in Phoenix, and that's where I go. It's about a 30-minute drive, but it is worth every minute of that drive. Every Sunday, that's when I go. And then we're blessed to have a parish in Gilbert called St. Anne's, and they actually do low mass Wednesday morning and Friday morning, so that's a little bit closer of a drive, so I'm able to go there, which is awesome. And when I was in Modesto, California, the closest FSSP was in Sacramento, which is an hour. So it's a little bit much to expect to drive on a Sunday. But it has completely changed. And just like you said, the way that I don't have to worry about people in flip-flops anymore. Some of these things where granted, I should just be more focused on my relationship with Christ and the fact that like, no matter what Mass you're going to, like Jesus is present in the Eucharist, and that's what matters most. But it can be very hard for me as a 22-year-old that's, lacks many virtues to stay focused when there's so many distractions going on. And like you said, I mean, going to this Mass and seeing the amount of youth, this is the parish I go to is in pretty ghetto part of the Tempe, Phoenix area. It's horrific on the outside. They use whatever little money they had to make it nice on the inside, to have like, I don't even think it's real marble. It's like a plastic sort of marble, but it gets the job done. And the inside's, wooden pews, just there's no carpet, it's all the things that you could ask for as a parish. And it's like, dude, they maybe have like $35 to work with. Yet we have some of these parishes that are bringing in just absolute racks per week. And for some reason can't even do away with the carpet inside their churches and the velvet and all that kind of stuff. And it has completely changed me. And it's been such a joy. Like for the first time, I probably never really liked going to Mass until about 18 years old. And now it's not something that like I just don't mind. It's something I look forward to and I can't wait for in the Latin Mass. But I will say, kind of going to the clothing aspect, because I thought we were going to talk about a lot about clothing, but your story's I think even cooler than
I have time. We can keep this going. I do have time.
Yeah. So what are the two things I think translate for both of us that I see, right? Translate from TLM, from incense, from chant, from the altar being right by the tabernacle, all this kind of stuff, right? I think there's two things that we see. It's intentionality and it's aesthetics. And then when we're talking about Draco, the apparel, I know two things that are big for you are aesthetics and intentionality behind everything. And I've said this on this podcast. I haven't gotten too much into it because, I don't think there's many of our listeners that really care about clothing that much. But I've made comments about like, hey, our clothing deserves more than like the Jesus, but with the Coca-Cola logo. Like we deserve more than that. In the 90s and stuff, that was cool, and I get the culture for it. But today, like we have the resources to create something much better. And I'll let you talk about sort of, the real ethos behind it and everything. But to see, I think my friend actually sent me your brand literally not too long ago. I was literally in Orange County. Like I was telling you, we were on a family vacation in Orange County, and we had just, I think I was just added like we had visited Belmont. I mean, not Belmont. I'm sorry, the Abbey.
Yes,
the
Michael's Abbey.
Yeah, over there, and it was awesome. And then I remember someone had sent me Draco, and I was like, dude, no way. I was telling my parents, and my parents don't really care either, but I'm like, dude, this guy is charging the money that he needs to because he's actually putting the real effort into clothing that you would hope would be there if you want to approach something as high and as deep and beautiful as our faith, like if you're trying to represent Our Lady, wherever it may be, like to do that in the way of handwork and all this kind of stuff. And we can get all into all that stuff, but I'll let you get into the ethos. But for me, it was really awesome to see. Obviously, like for some people who have been watching, I just dropped my first t-shirt, and there's a lot of things that I'm trying to work towards similarly. But yeah, go ahead. Talk to us about Draco Apparel and all that.
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, it started off with me meeting a bunch of art dudes who are like, I'm telling you, the most creative people I've ever met in my entire life. People who made me realize that like people like Michelangelo are alive today. And I have a friend, God bless his soul. He is a classically trained opera major. He's all these amazing things. And me, him, and another friend from my architecture school, were introduced to fashion and beauty from just like listening to things like Kanye West and going to a Sunday service event and feeling these articles of clothing. I bought one of his sweaters and I was like, yo, what is this? Why does it feel like it? Like I thought it was just gonna be a cotton sweater, but that is not just a cotton sweater. This feels different. This looks different. You know, people online are selling it for thousands of dollars. Why? You know, what's so special about a sweater? And I was thinking about, you know, in architecture, the word architect comes from the Latin phrase architecton. And what that means is master of form, right? Mm-hmm. And if I wanted to be an architect, I want to be able to master form. I want to be able to master space and create, right? Because I think it not only has effect on just what our eyes think looks good, but actually the community and the environment and the people who surround it, right? Now, what if I was to say, well, what if fashion is an aspect of architecture? What if the human body is a piece of form, the same way a cathedral or a great church needs to be dressed and corrected and expressed in such a fashion that not only uplifts you yourself, makes you feel good, but has a direct impact on the people who see you, the people that interact with you, the people that speak to you, or those who don't even at all and just look from afar, right? Because to me, fashion is architecture, right? In the same way that I could say furniture is architecture, that drawing or graphic design or, you know, glasses are architecture. So many different things are architecture. And the human body is no exception to this, right? Are we not body, mind, and soul? And to me, built quality is everything. From my origami background, I used to make my own paper. I used to hand pick my own strands of tissue. I used to go and fill the actual fibers, and I would make my methyl cellulose and I would mix it and I would watch overnight as my paper came to be so I could use it, I could feel it, I could really just become one with this thing that I was creating. Now, fast forward many years, and I'm telling you about these amazing friends. Why did I bring that up? These friends and I, we used to go to the fashion district in downtown Los Angeles and grab pieces of fabric. We used to literally put our money in pools and be like, guys, can we get an embroidery machine? Can you talk to your mom? Can you please talk to your mom, dude? You know, and we would get an embroidery machine. And dude, that was like the communal machine. And we pass it around. We get the sewing machine. We didn't have enough money to get screen printers. So what would we do? We would literally dumpster dive, grab logs of wood from the wood shop at the architecture school, and we would drill them together, and we would get the screen, and we would staple it and then we would use that as our screen printer. We're like, dude, okay, and we'd sit there and watch like a 20-minute video on emulsion and how to screen print, and we'd be like, dude, we can make screen printers, right? And we came up with this. Kanye West has this line: "Had an idea, did it," and that became our thing because I had this. I fell in love with architecture when I realized that your imagination, something that is a thought, can be vocalized, can be produced into a physical, real thing. You can think of something, sit down at a table, draw it. Now there's an image of it. Now you can think, okay, what are the pieces I need to put this together? I can go grab the fabric and I can cut it. I can take my favorite sweater and painstakingly rip it apart so that I know its exact shape. And I could trace it over a piece of paper, put that piece of paper over a fabric, cut it out, and then sit there for a few hours and sew it. And now I have something. I have my favorite sweater, but now it's not only my favorite sweater, it's my sweater. It's mine, right? I made it. And so I'm making these pieces of clothes for myself in the same way that my friends are, to speak to the world, about us wearing our architecture. But now, how do I really tell people who I am, what I care about, right? A lot of people don't know this, but I actually came up with the idea to draw stained glass designs because I was having this horrible creative block. And my friends are geniuses, all of them, smarter than I ever could be, more creative than I ever wished to be. And every week they were showing clothes they made that just blew me out of the water. How could they make that? How could they think of that? And I'm going through this creative rut. I didn't know what to do. I'm so stressed. I spent 10 hours designing, making things, drawing things. I can't come up with anything. I was working with this idea of an Our Lady of Guadalupe design, but it just wasn't coming out. So what do I do, right? What do I do? I was so anxious I couldn't breathe. I had to go outside. I went on a walk. I'm walking around my part of LA, my town, and next thing you know, I'm walking past my local church. And I go, okay, is it open? Not only is it open, there's confession going on. I get in line for confession. It's like 6, 7. The sun is setting. I'm next in line in confession, and I'm blinded by something. I literally get light in my eyes, and I'm stunned. I look up, and the sun is setting directly into the stained glass piece of Christ ascending. And I sat there and I looked at it and I was like, that is it. That is it. I take my phone out, I take a photo, I go in, I confess, I do my prayers. The next 20 minutes, I'm walking around this church taking a photo of every single stained glass design. I go back to my house, I stay up till like 5 a.m. drawing what I saw, recreating in my own style the stained glass pieces that I saw, the one that hit me in the eye, right? And the next day, I wake up, I go take the metro, and I go down to San Juan Capistrano, where one of my friends lives, the guy who's got the embroidery machine for the weekend. We go there, we have our summer sesh, and we all come together, and I use the embroidery machine for like 2, 3, 4 hours. And I took this sweater my sister gave me, this Adidas sweater from Christmas that she got me because I was obsessed with Kanye at the time. And she was like, looks just like Yeezy. Like, you'll wear this, people will think you're wearing Yeezy. This is from like 2007. Like, use it. I embroidered the Ascension of Christ onto that sweater. And my friends all sat around and they were like, whoa, dude. And I was like, yes, like I finally am the one that like I'm making them be like, oh shoot, like I won this weekend, right? This play, it's like iron sharpens iron, right? Christ talks in the gospel, like we're making each other better through this playful, like competitive nature. And so I'm like, this is my Draco piece. And I would walk around USC, I'd walk around LA wearing this. I still wear it. I have it in my car right now. It's my favorite sweater, right? It's my first sweater. And I kid you not, almost every single time I wear it, somebody pulls me aside. Yo, dude, you sell this? Hey man, where'd you get that? The old little lady walks up to me like, oh, my grandson loves clothes. Like, where can I get this? Blah, blah, blah. Some guy's like, hey, is that Kanye? Because this is back when Kanye released Jesus is King.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm telling them, and I'm like, no, I make it. Eventually, they start asking me, where do I get this? Do you sell this? I start saying, I do sell this. Like, I do sell this actually. Knowing darn well I don't, right? And next thing you know, I'm sitting there in my apartment, and this is January of 2020 because I made this sweater in December of 2019, and I'm like, I have to do this. I feel like I'm obligated to do this. I have to start making these, right? I have to start putting these out there. And I'm a funny guy. When I have my idea, I feel so stubborn about it. I have to see it to completion. And I get really obsessive about it. And this kind of like took over my life. COVID hit right after this period. And I was like, I need to figure this out, right? But what I'm not realizing is I am a sophomore in college. I got $20 in my bank account. I got all these ideas and all these aspirations. I have a cheap breaking apart embroidery machine that's communal, right? Like, but I want to make something, and I'm sitting there holding my Jesus is King Sunday service, like puffy print sweater, and I'm staring at it, and I'm like, what's going on, right? Like, why can't I make things that are this quality or higher quality than this, right? Like, how do I do this, right? And for the next year, the thing is a lot of people were like, oh, dude, you came out of nowhere. Like, I just see your account. Like, oh, I saw this, but they don't know. Like, I every day, every day for a year, I sat in this crack house little apartment that all of my friends lived in that was extremely illegal and not built to code, for just because we couldn't afford anything else at USC. And it's in the middle of COVID, and like, what do I do, right? Every single day, making Excel sheets, emailing people, calling companies. I can't even tell you how many emails, how many phone calls I made, how many visits I went to see people, their embroidery machines, to see screen printers and how they do it. And I was obsessed with this because I needed to create Ascension sweaters that were better than the one I made, right? I had to. And then I was like, I can't just release the Ascension. I have to make a design of Mary, and then I made a design of Joseph. And the thing is about these designs, that because I draw, I photograph, I edit, I take care of my marketing, I take care of my financing, I built my website. The reason people, they ask me a lot, why is it called Draco Apparel, right? And I got a lot of people, they're like, Draco in Latin means dragon, right? And I'm like, it makes me feel like crap every time. What is Draco Apparel is my apparel, because everything, I have to put my hands on everything that people see, from my Instagram to my website to my emails to these sweaters and the packages they come with. I do it all myself. I do it all by hand. And what I mean by that is, at this point, I'm not necessarily like sewing every single one of my garments anymore. I work with local companies to help do it, and I make sure that everybody I work with, it has to be made in the U.S., right? It has to be U.S. grown cotton. It has to be sewn to these exact the exact style I'm looking for, the exact cut. It has to. It's got to be embroidered by some guy. The guy who helps me with my embroidery right now, who's got his whole set of industrial grade embroideries. I draw them and I give them to them, and I get them digitized. And I'm calling him on the phone. I'm talking to him every day. I'm emailing him like dozens and dozens of emails. I'm seeing the samples. I'm driving back and forth, because they have to be just right. And the thing is, these sweaters, it would feel disingenuous if I just reached out to some fabricator in China, had these made in a sweatshop for dime cheap, and you got a sweater that I charged, I don't know, let's say hundreds of dollars for, and you get the sweater that might look pretty. You wear it 5, 6, 7, 10 times. You start washing it, it starts falling apart, starts getting old, starts crumpling up, starts being in trash. I can't have that, right? I found fashion, me and my friends, from Depop, from thrifting, from driving all around LA, driving to Arizona just to thrift, which has happened many times because Arizona, in my opinion, has the best thrift scene. Why am I wearing clothes? Why am I wearing my grandpa's clothes? And why are they still nice, right? I'm literally paying people like $60 for a sweater that was made for $5 that lasts way longer than the $200 sweater I buy now. Why is that happening, right? I don't want that to happen. So I'm making sure I'm working with the best seamstresses in LA. And dude, I had to pull so many like strings just to be able to get these people to speak to me. They'd be like, we only speak, like I went on, it started out with me going on GoDaddy and just buying some domains, right? And I would be like, hey, do you guys wholesale? Hey, can I work with you guys? Like, I'm a college student, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, can you, and some people would actually get back to me. And I can't believe I found the people that I had this Kanye West sweater, and I was like, I need this. It needs to be on this sweater. So I spent weeks finding the company that made the sweaters for
I think
Kanye.
I think I know who you're talking about, but you keep going.
You definitely do. And I went and I spoke to them, and I called them on the phone and I sent them emails, and they're like, and I'm just a kid, I'm 20, that don't know anything, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe like they can like give me like a wholesale license and it'd be cool or something, like, you know, they'll help me out. And they're like, hey, so we need to see your California business license. You need to have a California seller's permit. Like, we want to know, is this a DBA? Are you, what kind of business are you? Sole proprietorship? Are you like C Corp? Are you this? And I'm sitting there literally like so overwhelmed. They're like, we need to see your website. We need to see your catalog. We need to see your concepts of design. And I'm like, dude, what is going on? Like, actually, what is this, right? And I walk out, I like call my dad on the phone, and I'm like, Dad, like, what do I do? My dad's like, I don't know, you need to figure it out. You know, like, you need to do this. You need to go talk to the bank. You need to have like an actual business. You need to create a real business. And I'm like, this can't just be an idea. I actually have to put the work in, right? And I have to do all these things, and I teach myself all these things. And, you know, I'm, like I said, I'm very ADHD, and so it's super hard for me to not just jump from one idea to the next. But I spent a year getting this all to work out. I had to build websites, learn how to do that. And I had to go and learn photography, and I had, you know, I wanted to do this. I had to figure out my aesthetic, which is I'm still trying to learn, you know, just to make this all possible. And slowly but surely, it actually came together. And I found embroiderers that were like, hey, you know, we really respect this because we're actually Catholic. And it's not off. We've never, ever like had somebody reach out to us and, you know, not just have us do something for like, I don't know, like Eminem, you know, and I work and I spoke with these people, and I worked with them, and I visited them, and I got to know them, and I got to get the exact sweaters that I wanted, the exact T-shirts that I wanted, and it took work, and it took me meeting with these guys. It took me putting in week, 2 week, 3 weeks, hand drawing all of these designs to get them just right, going back and forth with the digitizing process, everything just to make it come alive. And like now I have sweaters, I have hats, I have sweaters, I have pins. I even have, I'm working on right now, like lighters with Our Lady on them.
Yeah, that's insane. That's insane.
Yeah, this is my newest one. I picked it up today, actually. This is I'm so excited for this. Yeah. I'm so excited for this one. Obviously, everything's made in the US. That's Zippo. And because it has to be, because like does not Christ call us to strive for excellence, right? Isn't it I feel like it's disrespectful for Christ if I feel like my vocation is leading me to this world of architecture where I see that as more than just buildings, if I am not to try to put everything into it. And I want to wear my faith. I want to show people it. Most of my products are extremely like statement pieces, you know, and I'm working on things that aren't as in your face about it, but like, how cool is that? How real is that, right? I want to take something that stained glass is physical, it's tangible. It's not just a graphic or a painting on a wall, but it's transparent. So I thought that the only way for me to represent that on a sweater was not through screen printing, but embroidery, because now embroidery adds that second element, just like stained glass does, right? And I had to research the process, stained glass making, you know, I had to research screen printing, embroidery, and you know, I just released my Our Lady of Guadalupe line. It took me 6 or 8 months to make that possible, right? I'm not just doing drop shipping where I, you know, want to put my design and make it like, now, let's get it now because it's fast and it's quick. Like and the thing is, I'm a college student, so everything I'm putting all I got into this, you know, literally all I got into it.
Yeah.
And it's been an incredible journey, dude. It's literally like I got to be at Seek, you know, and I got to have a stand and booth at Seek, and I got like emotional after. I was like, I cannot believe like this, a daydream I had, an idea I had in confession is now like I'm looking at people wearing my clothes. Like I can't even believe this. Like it blew my mind, and it has just been amazing because it's easy to get jaded when it's like 4 months in and the sweaters I wanted back in November still aren't here. You know, it's so stressful. But when I opened that box and I held them, I couldn't breathe. I spent the next 3 hours of my night just sitting there on my couch, just looking at it. It's like, dude, I'm driving over stuff in my car with these orders. I drive to my garage and I'm sitting there every weekend, packing them, putting them in their slips, putting my signature on things, stamping things. And it's like, every time I do this, like, I'm creating something that didn't exist at one point.
Yeah. I mean, dude, if I could have like handcrafted a conversation, this is probably this is the stuff. Well, obviously, I'm passionate about, and like I know we're gonna talk more, and things will go further, and people should expect some awesome things. But the thing is like I said, and I always joke about how like, oh yeah, no one watches our podcast. It's like I'm not. I get like we do this for if it's just one person, right, who can take it away and we help their soul or we help them want to be and grow, and that's the whole point. It's like showing regular people who are actively just trying to live, right? We're not just. It's not Catholics aren't just weirdos. They're not just 60-year-olds or whatever it may be. Like we come in every shape and size or whatever it may be. Not like this is not about body positivity and all that stuff, but this is more of like there's different personalities, people who are passionate about different things. And I think one of the reasons, like this is probably one of the biggest reasons for PPK Perspectives, is to show like what you can accomplish, what you took in terms of the depth of your faith and how you can now apply that to your passion and architecture and everything. And it's like that's the stuff that we lost in architecture, right? Like we're talking about with most churches here in America, and how much we've lost the intentionality. I didn't want to get into the mass, but there's a lot of intentionality that was lost and sort of what became our new mass. And so when we've now reflected that into what we create, right? I mean, it's an easy target to talk about Catholic movies being pretty awful unless Mel Gibson's behind it. And just so many of these things, right? Like that's one of the biggest things I talk about is like, dude, what we are missing so much. Like one of the questions I have is what are Catholics missing? But you don't have to answer it because exactly your process shows us what we're missing. And unless like each of us have that intention, because that's the intention that Kanye has, it's the intention that Jay Lorenzo has, it's the intention that Martin Scorsese has, it's the intention that all these people have that are of the world and secular. That's what they put into their craft, and that's why they're able to have such a big impact on the culture, while the people who have the faith and we have the fullness of truth put the intention of a fifth grader drawing their mom's Valentine's Day card. Like, you know, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's the difference in it. And like, I know that we could go forever, and we probably are continuing. We're going to be able to meet and all that kind of stuff later on. But as we kind of, we'll wrap this up because like, I want to get to some more stuff even after the interview. So we'll kind of wind down here on the interview. I have a couple things.
Sure.
This is one question I've been thinking about a lot. I think I have my answer, but if you could like, it doesn't have to be super complex, but maybe in a few sentences or something like, what is the balance in terms of the care and responsibility, not necessarily responsibility, but the thought that should go into kind of what we wear as Catholics, right? It's hard. One, we should reject consumerism. We should understand the obsession of really like materialism and how much that can deteriorate your soul, but also the intentionality of what you're saying, like what you wear and what that expresses to people when you see it, and the aesthetics. I remember I heard someone talk about how like nobody is a Mormon because of theology, right? And that's no shade, but Mormons are generally young people. They're all sort of fit, you know what I mean? They're all just kind of this attractive group of people. And when you see them at their services, you do not see anybody in a t-shirt. You're going to see everybody dressing in a certain way. That stuff's attractive, right? In the same way that Islam's attractive, because you see people who are actually care about the things that they say. They're not wearing flannels at a mosque or these other things. Like there's a certain level, right? So it's a hard balance, because I've been that way where I've been very passionate about clothing and realized like, hey, I got to have a proper balance here that isn't too much into it, but understanding what picking the right piece of clothing can do for a person and how much it can change. So I won't keep babbling, but if you could say like in a couple sentences or whatever, what's that balance look like for you?
Okay. So my lovely girlfriend, Catherine, is extremely serious and passionate about modesty. And I think the best way that I can put it is, as Catholics, we aren't dualists. We're not just a soul and a body. We are a soul, we are a body. And if we want our soul to thrive, if we want to uplift our environment, ourselves, if we want to revere something, I think we have to show our respect not only in our prayer life, not only in our internal life, but in our exterior life. Faith without works is dead, right? And to show Christ you care and show Christ you're serious, you have to show him in every way, in every aspect about you, right? And I think a lot of people can lose that because a lot of people don't realize, wait, my soul is with my body. Or some people are like, I'm just a body. A lot of people are materialists. And so all they have is appearance. All they have is their Gucci, their Prada, their Supreme, all their Louis, that's all they got, right? And they want to show you, they want to flash this logo in your face. They want to tell you, like, oh, look at my watch, look at my car. You just listen to the music of the world. That's all it is, right? I got girls, I got money, I got drugs, and I got clothes, right? That's like all they're saying, right? We have to be above that, right? There is a certain limit to what you can. I think what is right of us to flash and to throw into people's faces, right? But also, like, the Catholic Church is eccentric and it is beautiful, and a lot of Protestants growing up were like, oh man, Drake, like all that money the Catholic Church put into this cathedral, they could have given that to the poor, right? But Christ tells us there will always be the poor, right? But how many souls have been brought to heaven because they had a place to worship Christ, right? If we want our churches to be more beautiful, I think we need to lift up our standards on what we think is right and holy and beautiful in accordance with the Catholic Church, which it has. It has its modesty standards. It has the Marian modesty standards for men and women, and that's one thing that we actually take really seriously. In Draco, you can look at any photo we have on our website, on our Instagram, and our emails. We will not show men unless they're wearing formal clothes, and we will not show women unless they're wearing dresses with our merchandise, because we think it's very important, if we want to create an environment for beauty, that we show that there is like a level of reverence we wish to constantly maintain for Christ, and it's balance. At what point is what I'm wearing detrimenting my spirituality, and at what point am I just abandoning, it's this is my body. You can't abandon your body, and you can't forget your soul. And I don't know, the church has spent fortunes to create a safe place where people can worship, and their grandparents can worship, and their grandparents can worship, and your future generations can celebrate the Lord. And so there is a power to physical, to things that are material, but we can't lose ourselves to it.
Yeah, no, that's beautifully said. I think I agree with you 100%. And okay, I'll wrap this up because I'm excited for after interview discussions. I'll wrap up with this one. I like to ask this question, but I think this one really applies for you, as we've kind of gone through this whole journey. And I think when people are leaving this, for the 4 people that would listen all the way through this point, like, if you haven't been inspired by that, I don't know what else to do. But let's just say we're talking to, and I know one day people are going to look back at this video and be like, that was a sick one. But for, like, let's just say we're talking to like the 18-year-old, right? Like, both of us started our freshman year and we thought we had this idea of like what clothing would be like. Let's say we're talking to that guy. If you just had, like I said, a couple of sentences, like, what's your advice to that kid, to the young Miko and Draco out there that are just that are still wearing their, skinny jeans and whatever else, ripped skinny jeans and all that stuff?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I think I would start off by telling myself to put almost all of my Gap clothes in the dumpster. But I think I would just tell myself to be patient, and if if I have this idea for something, just take it one step at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and don't let the stress like consume you. If you want to look like, Versace, just take it one step at a time, right? Be patient, because I think that's one thing I know with myself is I can let the weight of an idea just completely take me over.
Mm-hmm.
So just stop wearing Gap, dude, and just be patient. Just one garment at a time, one little grail you find at a thrift shop at a time.
Yeah.
In 6 months, you're gonna have the coolest fit out of all your friends. But just that little belt you find, just keep it. Like, just take your time.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I would say like sort of the same thing. When I started out with this, what would PPK be? It's like, sit with that. It's an awesome idea you have, but go in the chapel and just sit with that. God, is this where you're moving me? Is this where you're moving me? How can I reveal you in ways that haven't been shown before? Like, those are the things. And whether that's film, whether that's photography, whether it's whatever it's going to be, marketing, whatever you're into, in some sort of creative outlet, like, just take that. Like, I know what it's like to be super passionate about something and just have to wait. But that's what it deserves. That's what God deserves. That's what your creation deserves. It deserves to wait and to fully understand the intentionality behind it. We didn't have the Latin Mass in 3 years. We didn't have it in 30 years. I don't think we had it in 300 years. It took a very long time before we had what we know today as Latin Mass. And there's a reason behind it, and that's why it's so beautiful. And it didn't take, it doesn't take 3 years to build a cathedral, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, with that, we're already at hour 15. For all of you who have made it this far, if any of you guys watched at all, I thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Draco, so much for being on. Please go check out what he's got, shop.draco. I'm going to have a link to all of his stuff in the bio below. Like I said, maybe I'll flash some pictures in the beginning, like I said before, just to show you guys. It's important to not only, listen to people's stories, but to support as well, like people who are going through, and Draco's going through the effort to do it, to go out and support, and at the very least share, right? Give him a follow, share what he's got if you're not going to buy it. And just like, let's continue to do this, you know what I mean? Like, let's go kick some A, and until next time, guys, God's peace.